Right. So are you going to be embarrassed by your cowardice, or are you going to be embarrassed by what comes out when you are courageous? That's kind of the theme and the anthem with this Sagittarius full moon. Here is our full moon at the ninth degree of Sagittarius. It is conjunct Lilith in a sign of truth, hope, faith, and optimism, but especially truth. So there are some words that are going to likely need to be said. And then we have this Luciad in opposition to the full moon. There's Mars and there's Venus. They're sextile each other, but each of them in conjunct this full moon. And I'm going to get to what that means and why. That means we need to access our passion in order to get to the part where there is courage. There's also a sextile to the full moon from Juno and Pluto, who are conjunct there in Aquarius. We see a trine to this lovely conglomeration of energy over here in Aries. Like the fun just doesn't stop for the fire signs. Fire signs, shout out to you because I see y'all have been in the trenches all year long, Sag, Leo, and Aries. We have Neptune, we have Vesta, we have Pallas, we have Saturn, we have Eris and Chiron. While not speaking to the full moon, Eris and Chiron, Neptune, Vesta, Pallas, and Saturn are. Thank goodness we get a break from Eris and Chiron with this full moon. And then we also see it's a super loose, well, no, that's not there. Okay, good. All right, so that's what we have. It's an intense energy, and for reasons that I'm not going to explain here, having to do with Mercury, who's about to go retrograde, there's so much you need to say the thing energy about this full moon. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons that have to do with the full moon, but the lunar circle that I do in Star Club, I took a deep dive on Mercury this week with the Star Club members and really detailed specifically how aspects to Mercury are causing people to step up and say the vulnerable truth. So if you're curious about that, you can join Star Club. But before we get there, hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and this is a video about the Sagittarius full moon taking place on 5/31 at 4:41 a.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Let's start with this conjunction to Lilith. Lilith is an energy that needs to have things go her way in order to participate. She doesn't like to be on the scene, on the board, engaged in interactions unless she is considered by herself and, of course, by others, included and focused on in some capacity. It's not a completely selfish energy, but it is absolutely an energy of self-inclusion, which I think is really important if we understand the context, how we're walking into this full moon. Many of you who've been with me for a while have seen me talk a lot, lunation after lunation, new moon and full moon, about Chiron and Eris here. These two have been doing the most in showing us where we feel victimized in our life, in our circumstances, and how we have been participating in that disenfranchisement, that exclusion, and ways that we can behave, that's Aries, differently in order to put ourselves back in the mix. For the first time in a long time, this full moon is not having a communication with Chiron and Eris at the tail end of Aries. This full moon instead is speaking with Lilith. And the Lilithian energy is bringing forward the opposite end of the spectrum, the opposite end of the coin. Instead of feeling self or disenfranchised, self excluded, again, most of this is by our own hand and participation. We're going along with it since this is the tail end of Aries. This and not some other sign. It's not the family doing it. We're not in Cancer. It's not the colleagues doing it or the friends. We're not in Aquarius with that energy. It's not the workplace doing it. They're not in Capricorn. This is Aries, the sign of the self. So if we're feeling this way because of other people, it's because we're also participating in it. We are going along with and agreeing with their exclusion, disenfranchisement, leaving us out, not considering us. And thankfully, this particular full moon has Lilith speaking to it, which lets us know we get to experience what it's like when we take that stand for ourselves. This may be internal. It may, for some of you, begin to show up externally, where you're ready to say the thing that is hard to say. Now, here's a funny about it. When we're talking about Sagittarius, boy, oh boy, does Sagittarius know how to say it. If any of you are Sagittarians in the comments, if you want to, let us know what that means, that would be amazing. But I have a few Sag folks in my life, and I have watched as the Sag people, they're truthful to a fault. They're truthful almost sometimes to the point of their detriment. They can be truthful in a way that cuts, whether they mean to or not. And so, one of the things happening under the light of this full moon is that the vulnerable truth gets exposed from within ourselves to ourselves. And whether or not that means we need to show up and have a conversation with somebody else, that remains to be seen. For some people, that conversation is going to happen in the now time. And that's specifically because Sagittarius is one of our communication signs. And so, with the moon traveling through Sagittarius, as it's receiving direct light from the sun, we have our interior emotional world becoming unignorable to us. And where it counts, it's about to be very unignorable to other people. Now, I'm laughing in recognition and with you because my own interior world has certainly become quite loud to me, where I'm like, oh, that's how you really feel, K Moon. There's no running from it. And so, having what I have told the Star Clubbers is called a congruent conversation. And I provided some journal prompts in Star Club for you to do that. That's what's going to be the game changer for you. So, you'll see that this energy shows up in all areas of life. My Star Clubbers have shared, some things needed to get said in a family setting. Some things have needed to get said in a work setting. Some things have needed to be said in romantic settings. I've heard from people across the spectrum where truths that have been sat on are now getting disclosed in ways that reset the playing field across the board to now include the parts of ourselves that have been excluded. And that's really the Lilithian narrative. We put ourselves back on the board. We put ourselves back at the table. Either we're at the table or we're leaving. Like we're not participating in something that's a one-way road. Not with this Sagittarius full moon. So even if it comes out sideways, even if it comes out a little messy, we're going to have ample time to clean that up as we're preparing to head into Mercury retrograde here in Cancer. We'll have ample time to talk about our feelings and the way things landed and what we wish we had said differently, blah, 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 blah. But at this moment, this full moon is the full moon where the truth comes out, baby. And part of this is because Uranus is also opposing this full moon with a Uranian opposition. For many, this is going to come out suddenly. It's going to come out of nowhere. It's going to come out sideways. It's going to come out at a time that is highly inconvenient or unexpected. Nevertheless, the truth comes out. Now, this isn't necessarily people getting exposed energy. I want to be very clear about that. This is not that. This is, I'm sitting on some things that I haven't said that I need you to hear sort of energy. And it ultimately has to do with Sagittarian things, of course, faith, hope, and optimism. It has to do with long range vision, the goal. We see Sagittarius represented by the sign of the archer, the end game in a situation. These are the sorts of conversations that now come to light with this full moon. Okay. And yeah, Sagittarius and Gemini are two communication signs of the zodiac. So I love to see that. Much of it for many people, because this full moon is receiving activation from the Juno Pluto conjunction there in Aquarius. Aquarius represents communities, friendships, alliances. It also represents our colleagues. So some of you are having these conversations in those areas. Juno specifically deals with partnerships, both business and romantic. So some of you will be having these conversations in those areas. For those of you who are sitting with a pink elephant in the room in some capacity, if you're wondering, should I, will they, who knows, it is the feminine energy, the one who's receptive to experiencing and feeling all of this. Doesn't matter what your body is like. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about physical presentation. I am talking about the person who is receptive, that's the Juno component, to the fact that a conversation needs to be had to begin with. Because sometimes some people just sit in a whole room filled with a stank smell, looking straight at the doo-doo on the floor, going, dang, what is the smell in here? They're just oblivious. They're not receptive. If you are the receptive one, you smell it and you see it, you are the one who will initiate the conversation. It is activated in part by Pluto here. Pluto is the bringer of endings, closures, completions. And then an integration and learning cycle occurs, and then a rebirth occurs at a later time. So if a conversation occurs in this moment and then an ending shows up in the midst of that conversation, I want you to understand it's probably not over, not at all. It's probably going to go into a pause, not an ending, so that a rebirth can occur on the other side. So just keep that in the back of your mind that Pluto operates in triplicate, yes, endings, but also phoenix and rebirth. This energy has the potential to show itself if both people need to take a break for integration, growth, and learning after this truth or difficult conversation is had and exposed. Okay. Then we also see, like I said, this trine here to Neptune, Vesta, Pallas, and Saturn there in Aries. And this is why this is a conversation about us coming home to ourselves and then sharing that truth with other people. It's us seeing who we are for real, for real. Saturn has been doing this dance in Aries since the early part of this year. And it's almost like a little cosmic knock knock joke where it's like, knock knock, who's there? Me. Me who? Me you. The Saturnian energy inside of Aries is placing a demand on all of us to really get real with ourselves about who we are in some area of life and who we are not, and to be honest about that. First with ourselves, and then for anyone connected to us in that area of life. See your chart for added details, dot, dot, dot. Outside of that, here's what I would say. Because Saturn is speaking to Pallas, now we have a self-protective mechanism showing itself at this full moon. In shadow, you may find you or others are feeling very defensive. In light, those who have rolled out the red carpet with access to themselves and their resources may finally roll that carpet back in and lift up the drawbridge and say no mas. Then we see Vesta, which is doubling down on that self-protection with dedication. And then we see Neptune, which is now washing away access to us being able to go back to the version of self, the delusion of self that we previously were living in. We cannot ignore any longer where we have been not ourselves or operating outside of highest, best, most self-expressed self. Saturn's energy will not permit us to do that. And this is why a Saturn and Neptune entered Aries. That was the beginning of a period of exposure. We saw a lot of politicians, government officials, entertainers all get exposed because the self on the inside and the self on the outside, when Saturn transits Aries, have to match. They cannot be mismatched. With that being said, Saturn's movement through this sign, now speaking to this full moon in Sagittarius, leading this beautiful stellium here that includes two of these asteroids, it's letting us know, hey, you may have even been trying to keep the truth to yourself. You can't ignore it anymore. You now have to stand on it. And so I like to see that, especially where those of you who are guided to have congruent conversations with other people are having those conversations, because what that is doing for you is it's opening up the pathway for a relationship to reconfigure in a way where you no longer have to be a halfling version of you, part where only parts of you get to be present, but the rest of you has to be silent, has to hold its tongue, has to be absent. This is now the crossover point where you can no longer do that in your friendship group, in your families. You can no longer do that when it comes to your colleagues, your coworkers, your job. You can no longer do that with your business partners. It's too difficult to put Jack back in the box. So very potent energy aspecting this full moon. This is why this part of it's about us coming home to self. It's a homecoming energy. Now, I want to speak into and about, before I wrap this up, this yod here in the chart, because I feel like this is an important element to this. If you really want to access this truthy energy, because if you are not in the energy of this yod, you're going to feel like everything I just said made absolutely no freaking sense to you because you're still too busy trying to find the definition of clarity for yourself, still trying to spell out what the clarity is. And if that's the case, not to worry. We got some exciting transits coming up this summer. And I am definitely saying that tongue in cheek and exciting in air quotes that will illuminate so much clarity for you. Buckle up, it's coming. But for now, what I will say, for those of you who've already been in this yod's energy, when Venus and Mars sit in a 60-degree angle to one another, which they are doing now, it brings forth an energy of passion. It brings forth an energy of almost like a lust, but not just, for other people, but for life, a zest, a vim, a vigor, and aliveness, a passion for being fully alive and for getting after whatever our goals, hopes, dreams, ambitions are through taking action. It's a blended energy of taking action and then being receptive to what comes back, and then taking more action and then being receptive to what comes back. This sort of passionate, congruent communication between us and life is the very stuff that allows our divinity to experience who and what it is incarnate in a body, that divine spark in you, that God spark, the little special kernel of divine light that God, Allah, Spirit put inside of you to let you know, hey, you are not just human, you are more than human. We get to experience that through passion, through the experience of feeling how much more above our humanity can we rise. So this sextile here is giving us the opportunity to experience that in real time. Now, some people only know passion when it comes to work. Other people, oh, and their creative arts, their creative thing. Other people only know passion in the bedroom. It doesn't matter how you're accessing it. I will say passion needs to be in motion in your life, something you're passionate about, specifically likely concerning a goal, some end you'd like to experience, some aim you'd like to achieve. Thank you, Sagittarius. At this full moon, Sagittarius full moon, some passion in your life. If that's already in motion for you, you're going to find that this truth that's coming forward at this time is going to reveal, yeah. This is the next step. This is what needs to happen. Either this is what needs to be said, or this is the truth that I need to face and the thing that I need to reorganize in my life, because it may not have anything to do with another person. It may have to do with you being honest with yourself that, yeah, I got to get out of this lease, this mortgage, this house. I got to get out of this neighborhood, this country, this state, this city. I got to make a new relationship to money, my finances, my investments, my earning. I got to have a completely new way of interacting with my friends. If I'm going to stay friends with them, I've got to shift this, right? It may have more to do with the way you choose to show up than any sort of conversation you need to have with other people. So keep that in mind, that not everything is about, saying something to other people. Sometimes the act of change and the work of it has to do with having the courage to just change yourself. Just shift you, and the rest of it falls into place. Caveat emptor here. Some of y'all do too much in the world of saying nothing and doing the most. This is the full moon to say something. Others of y'all do way too much in the arena of saying the most and doing absolutely nothing. Know which camp you fall in and balance the scales here. That's going to serve your life better if you use this to balance some things out. Okay. So keep that in mind. But it's this passionate energy that then allows movement. It allows the universe to meet you halfway in stepping things forward. So I like to see that for you, for all of us, really. I think this is a potent, powerful full moon. In just a moment, I'm going to talk to you about signs who are going to feel this full moon most this week, next week, as it unfolds. But before we get there, I want to share some of what else is going on in the sky. And at the very end, if you're new, I'm going to close out with the segment I call First Look, where we're going to take a sneak peek ahead at this Gemini new moon so we know how the energy is going to progress between this full moon in Sag and the new moon in Gemini. And you can prepare yourself mentally accordingly. Let's talk about what else is going on in the sky. So, like I said, there is some communication here with Mercury and Gemini, having a communication, a semi-sextile to Jupiter there in Cancer. We see a trine to Haumea, the creation goddess, there inside of Scorpio. Final degrees of Libra are what get activated by that trine. We see a trine to Chariklo, who is intercessional blessings. Over here in Aquarius, this makes a grand air trine, little bit Haumea is retrograde in Scorpio, so not exactly, but close to. Then we also see a square to Nessus, which is obsession, here in the sign of Pisces. And we see a sextile to Chiron and Eris there in Aries. When I put all of this together, what I'm seeing is a very activated energy inside of each of us around potential and possibility, and then words that need to be said. Now, I provided some guidelines for this in the lunar circle. For those of you who have joined Star Club, definitely check that out in your member area. And if you want to join Star Club, there will be an opportunity coming next week. So keep an eyes on your inbox on the private list and keep your eyes here on the community posts inside of YouTube. I will be extending that invitation so that you can get in on how to work with this energy as well. We also see Mars in Taurus right here at the 9th degree. Mars is in very loose conjunction to Chiron. You can barely call it a conjunction since it's even different signs, but it is a 10-degree orb, which is quite loose. But this can have some of us feeling a lot like, but I can't. It's too hard. Okay, Moon, you don't understand. I'm not able. I'm limited. A lot of victim stories going on here. If you let yourself live the victim story, choice is yours. We also see a trine to Haumea retrograde in Scorpio. Actually, no, that was Mercury. Let me go back up to Mars. There we go. We see a semi-sextile to the Uranus-Sun conjunction there in Gemini. So there's a semi-sextile. There's the Sun. Speaking there to that Mars, and this is certainly bringing forth an illumination to where we're telling that story. Big mirror energy here, especially if you've got somebody who's soul family to you. You may be seeing a lot of mirroring energy there between you and them. That we also see as well. Sextile to Venus in Cancer. As I mentioned, this is activating to that passion energy if you're willing to lean into it. A trine to Pholus, who is retrograde there in Capricorn, which is bringing forth a lot of illumination about where, if we are doing old stories, old songs, old paradigms, old processes, and this old song and dance, do what you've always done. You're going to get what you've always gotten. You're going to have to learn how to sing a new song. I don't know another way to say it. And I'm telling myself this as much as I'm telling you. It is necessary to step onto a new timeline with everything you've got here. We also see a square to Juno, Pluto in Aquarius there. This highlights this energy in partnership. And then lastly, we have a semi-sextile from this Mars back here to Saturn and Pallas and Vesta inside of Aries, bringing all that truth hurts, got to deal with the speck in my own eye before I try to, or the beam in my own eye before I try to call out the speck in yours. This thing right here is a big piece of why some of this energy can be very, very uncomfortable, especially if you have been telling yourself limitation stories. I talk about how to get out of that with an exercise that I provided for this Lunar Update in Star Club. We do see Venus in Cancer here. She is square Makemake there inside of Libra. We also see an opposition to Pholus there in Capricorn. And then we also see a loose square there to Saturn over here in Aries. Again, this Saturn, Pallas, Vesta configuration that includes Neptune. It's a whole lot of heavy weights. It's heavy. It's a whole lot of heavy. And I don't mean heavy sad, I mean heavy deal with your nonsense. Whatever your version of that is. I got a little laundry list. My guides have been talking to me about mine. Like, girl, like here, we got to deal with this. You can't keep doing this. It's not working for you. Whatever your version of that is, for some of you, it really has to do with the way you've been handling time. For some of you, health. For others of you, certain family members, right? It's going to just depend on the person. This, what we see as almost pretty much like a grand cross, this is activating for all of us a need to face where we've been too attached, way too attached to doing things one way. And now, if you want to keep doing it that way, you can. The universe will just break it down into smaller lessons why that doesn't work for you. But this is absolutely an opportunity to jump onto a new timeline, make a new choice, do something significantly more congruent. Okay. And then we see Jupiter in Cancer here at the 23rd degree. And this is a very corrective energy as it is trine Nessus over here in Pisces, water sign Pisces to water sign Cancer. And then we also have a square to Chiron and Eris and Aries. Can't get out of a lunation without somebody talking to these two. This energy right here opens up again opportunity to see where we have been telling ourselves nonsense stories and then acting like they're real, like we're not powerful, like we don't have options for other choices. This, the empowerment of this Sagittarius full moon comes from the way in the theater, all the lights are on. There's no hiding place in the corner or the shadows that is forgiving of us playing small. And so at this point, in this kind of energy, the question really is like, I know it's hard. I know it's awkward. I know it's difficult. I know it's challenging. I know you don't really know how to dance, and the universe is asking you to get on the dance floor. Are you going to be embarrassed by your courage, or are you going to be embarrassed by your cowardice? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Okay, so let's get into it. Who are the signs that are going to feel this most? Of course, Sagittarius. But Sagittarius, if anybody has the corner of the market on doing a bold, brave, blunt thing, it is you. So get out there and be your shiny self. Aries, of course, fire sign Leo as well. But then you add on to that opposing sign Gemini, squaring sign Virgo, and Pisces. Lots of activation there for you guys as well. Now, because we also have this yod between Mars and Venus, I'm going to say Taurus and Cancer, you guys are not off the hook. Pay attention to where you're feeling discomfort and the urge and churn in your stomach to move. This is the energy that's asking you to make change. Let's take a first look at the Gemini new moon taking place on June 14th, 10:53 p.m. If you're on the eastern seaboard of the United States, haven't seen it yet. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so we see new moon in Gemini, late degrees of Gemini, 24th degree, new beginning energy. We also see, let's see, who are we talking to here? A little bit of activation from Chiron there. Nessus, Mars, Jupiter. Lilith. Okay. Wow. And then Mercury will be in shadow. We'll be doing a deeper dive on the Mercury retrograde in Star Club. Let's see. What do I make of this? Semi-sextile to Jupiter is expansion. Wow, a lot of language, a lot of words, and it can be confusing, especially because Chiron is in the mix. There's still some of this I can't nonsense going on. Although, because we're dealing with Gemini, there's exploration of, but how can I? And Nessus is holding our fingers to the fire, going, yeah, how can you? Why don't you try to figure that part out? I'm going to make you uncomfortable until you do. I'm not going to let you sleep. I'm going to make you restless until you do figure out how can you. And Lilith is really, oh, I like that. I like the Lilithian aspect. She also is applying some pressure here in the form of the T square, completing the T square via the energy of, well, you can't do it that way because that didn't work before, and you can't do it this way because it won't work for you, knowing who you are. You're gonna have to find a creative solution here. There is a sign that's unoccupied in the mutable energies. Gemini has occupation from the sun, moon. Pisces has occupation from Nessus. Sagittarius has occupation from Sagittarius. That creates a lot of tension around figure it out, but you can't do it this way. There is a solution in the chart, and we're going to talk about it at the Gemini new moon. I will see you then. If you heard something that resonates, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd love to know what you've been up to in the comment section. Let me know. Have you had any aha moments, realizations about what you're ready to change or things that need to get said? I think more than a few people that I have spoken to at this full moon in Sagittarius have told me that they have. If you're joining me for the Divine Counterpart Twin Flame Lunar Update, you can find that right after this. I strongly recommend you listen to this first and then go to that as a part two. I look forward to connecting with you more in Star Club and certainly at the Gemini new moon. Take great care and bye for now.